Before we get started with today's interview, just a quick reminder, click the thumbs up, make sure you subscribe and ding the bell so that you don't miss any of the great interviews that we have coming up. Now, on to today's interview. Welcome back, everybody. Today, my guest is composer Kristen Allred. Her piece is Jamaican Oriole from the book Nature's Cacophony, Book 1. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So this piece is really, really fun. It instantly transported me to feeling like I was on an island beach, and just has all of these really cool Caribbean rhythms in it and some nice opportunities to play some rapidly moving chords around. Talk to us a little bit about what we should be thinking about as we're teaching and playing Jamaican Oriole.
Well, you can first start about talking to your students about what is a Jamaican Oriole. And we have Orioles here in America, but there's also an Oriole that is specifically called the Jamaican Oriole. Their Orioles are bright, beautiful orange color. Show them a picture. And then you can talk about Jamaican rhythms or reggae rhythms or whatnot. To me, some of this where you're doing this, that sounds like steel drums to me. So that's kind of what I was hearing, is these Jamaican rhythms and steel drums. And so I would pull up some of those recordings and get them in your students' ear and tie that all together. These fun rhythms, these syncopated rhythms. So I would talk about that. I would talk about that it's in D major. So hopefully you're talking to your students about the key it's in, having them play the D major scale because it's going to occur in this piece. And at the very end of the piece, you play a straight D major scale with a little bit of a rhythmic twist in there, but it's a straight D major scale. So they, of course, should know the D major scale before they play this piece. And then there's several times in the piece where you play a D major scale, but it's split between both hands, where you're playing just fingers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so if you can just show them those patterns, okay, you're going to have a D major scale in here. If you already know that scale, you can play that measure. You're going to have the D major scale split between two hands. You're going to have several different places on the piano. So get used to that. So if you're teaching them that, you have an opportunity to also teach them about cut time and what 2/2 is, and why would the composer put this in 2/2 instead of 4/4. And playing through this, another thing I would introduce to a student is when you're using the pedal on these pieces, it can get too muddy if you push the pedal down all the way. It depends on your piano. It depends on how fast you're playing the piece. It's going to be different for almost every occasion, how you're playing the piece. So teach them about half pedal or quarter pedal, how you don't always have to push the pedal down all the way, and listening to if it gets too muddy, change it more than what the composer said. That's another hard thing as composing, is how often should I put these pedal changes? Because if they're playing it really slow, they really need to change it probably more than a composer's written. Talk to them about listening. Have them record themselves and listen back. And is the pedal muddy? Do I hear the melody?
I love the challenge that students should really self-assess by recording themselves and playing it back and finding out, how am I really doing? I know sometimes students have trouble rapidly shifting from one chord to another chord. And that happens a few times in this piece.
Yes.
What are some strategies that students can use to achieve that shift really rapidly and with great facility?
It's always good to isolate practice spots like that when you're doing that. Let's go over the left hand and let's talk about that interval. It's just a fourth. That's pretty easy for him, but the right hand is harder. So you might have to circle that and say, that's got to be 5 times a day you're going to play that. But then you also analyze it and you look at the outer notes. You're like, okay, what interval is the outer note? It's a 6th. You talk about that. And you talk about how the outer notes are really just stepping up. It's just a 6th stepping up. And they can just take those outer notes and work on that. Oh, I can do that. Well, maybe I can add that 3rd in the middle. And then you talk about how that note in the middle stays the same from one chord to the next.
That is super helpful. Is there anything else you'd like us to know about Jamaican Oriole?
Just have a lot of fun with it. That would be all. I hope they would just play it and have so much fun with those rhythms, those syncopations.
That is great advice. Thank you so much for being here today. My guest has been Kristen Allred. Her book is Nature's Cacophony, Book 1, and the piece in it is Jamaican Oriole that's on the new Federation Festivals list. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.